Dallas Cowboys are entering a crucial stretch, and there's a lot going on behind the scenes as the team finalizes its roster ahead of Week 1. But before we dive into the updates on injuries and potential roster moves, it's worth noting that there's a competitive energy even off the field right now. Yeah, I'm talking about the ongoing battle with the 49ers report in terms of subscriber numbers. It's close, but there's still time to pull ahead. So, if you're new here or haven't already, make sure to hit that sub button. The next few days are going to be packed with updates, including final cuts, waiver wire pickups, and deeper breakdowns of who's sticking around and who's not. Now, let's get into what's really heating up in Dallas, the injury situation, and what it could mean for the early part of the season. Starting with Tyler Guyton, we actually got some encouraging news. Offensive coordinator Brian Schottenheimer gave a relatively optimistic update, comparing Guyton's recovery trajectory to that of Trayvon Diggs. According to him, Guyton is trending in the right direction, and there's even hope that he could get back on the field this week. Not just doing rehab, but actually practicing. That's what they mean when they say on the grass. It's about participating, not just rehabbing on the sidelines. So yeah, that's a pretty solid update, and it feels like Dallas might be getting him back sooner than originally expected. Now, let's keep it real. It's still a toss-up whether Guyton will be available for Week 1. He's right in that gray area of the recovery timeline, somewhere between 4 to 6 weeks since the injury. Week 1 was always a stretch goal, not impossible, but definitely ambitious. If this injury had happened on a Sunday instead of a Thursday, maybe he'd have an extra couple of days and we'd feel more confident. But even if he can't go, it does seem like he's on a very manageable recovery path, and there's optimism that at the very least he could be back by Week 2. Interestingly, Schottenheimer's tone feels like a shift from what head coach Mike McCarthy had hinted at previously. Last season, there were murmurs that the staff didn't love how Guyton handled his injuries, maybe thought he needed to be tougher or more committed to his rehab. That's not the impression we're getting now. The narrative around Guyton seems to be changing, and that's a good thing for both the player and the team. He wasn't great last year, let's be honest. There were flaws in his game. But the Cowboys' offensive system needs a stable, dominant offensive line to function at its best. You've got elite talent at the skill positions, your wideouts, tight ends, and, of course, Dak Prescott. But if the line isn't holding up, all that firepower gets neutralized. So, getting Guyton back on the field and getting him back confident and healthy is a big deal. In case Guyton can't go for Week 1, all signs are pointing to Nathan Thomas as the next man up. It seems like he's earned that backup left tackle spot. He outperformed Austin Richards during the preseason, and one of the big clues came in that final preseason game. Richards played deep into the game, while Thomas didn't see the field, which usually means the coaching staff has already made up their mind. Thomas may not have a ton of football under his belt yet, but he's flashed enough to be trusted as the guy if Guyton needs more time. So that's where things stand at left tackle. And of course, we want to hear from you. Do you think Guyton will be ready to play in Week 1? Drop a Y for yes or an N for no in the comments. Switching gears to the backfield, there's another injury update worth diving into, Jaden Blue. Reports say he's dealing with a low ankle sprain, and while it's not ideal, it's definitely not a season-altering injury. In fact, ESPN's Jeremy Fowler reports that Blue is hopeful to be ready for Week 1. That's the kind of injury you can manage, especially for a guy who's expected to be used in a more limited situational role. Still, this isn't the first time Blue has been dinged up, and that's starting to be a little concerning. He hasn't had a heavy workload through college or high school, less than 700 total carries in his entire career, which on one hand keeps him fresh and theoretically prolongs his pro career, but on the other hand, it means there's less of a track record when it comes to durability. He hasn't had to handle that grind, and now we're seeing him miss time before the season even starts. It's not quite a red flag, but let's call it a yellow one. Not panic-worthy, but definitely something to keep an eye on. That said, Blue absolutely needs to stay on the field because the Cowboys need what he brings to the table. He's not going to get double-digit touches every week, at least not yet, but his explosiveness, his ability to break off big plays in space, that's valuable. You're not asking him to be a bell cow back. You're asking him to be a weapon. Think 5, 6, maybe 7 impactful touches a game. That's where he can really shine. And in today's NFL, you need those X-Factor guys who can shift momentum in a single play. Javonte Williams is clearly locked in as part of this running back group. He's a known quantity and someone who's definitely sticking around. Beyond him, the running back room is a bit more fluid. Blue and Hunter Luepke seem like strong bets to make the roster, but there are questions beyond that. Guys like Deuce Vaughn, Tyron Davis-Price, and Myles Gaskin are fighting for spots, and depending on how many backs they keep, some tough calls are coming. Ideally, you get to the end of this season and you're saying, yep, Jaden Blue is one of our guys moving forward. Maybe you still need to add another back in the offseason, but at least you know Blue belongs. Now, let's talk corners. Kalen Carson's injury is flying a bit under the radar, but that doesn't mean it's not significant. He's dealing with a high ankle sprain, and the team has been unusually quiet about his progress. We're just entering that 4 to 6 week recovery window, so this kind of radio silence could mean a few things. Maybe they're being cautious, maybe he's not responding to treatment the way they hoped, or maybe it's just strategic ambiguity. Either way, the lack of updates is worth noting. The decision the Cowboys have to make now is whether to keep Carson on the active roster or stash him on injured reserve. If they IR him now, he'll miss at least the first 4 games, but that opens up a spot for someone else. If they keep him active, he might be unavailable anyway, and that could complicate your game day depth. Last year, Carson actually showed promise when injuries forced him into action, especially in that game against the Browns. But then his confidence seemed to waver, and the shoulder injury ended up shutting him down. And now, here we are again, wondering about his availability. Cornerback depth is looking shaky. You've got Darren Bland, Trayvon Diggs, who's still not a sure thing for Week 1, CeeDee Lamb, and Andrew Booth. After that, it gets thin fast. Maybe one of Kean Hall or Zion Childress makes it. Israel Mukumu is a name to watch because of his versatility. He can play all over the secondary and contribute on special teams, which boosts his value. But with Carson and Jonathan Mingo both potentially headed to IR, the Cowboys are going to have to do some real juggling. And that's before you even get to other depth pieces like Savion Red or Eric Scott. Roster math is hard enough, and when injuries are in play, it becomes a jigsaw puzzle. So again, we'll throw the question to you. Will Kalen Carson be on the active roster for Week 1? Hit A for yes, B for no. And here's the real kicker. Even beyond the injuries, there's still holes on this roster. Defensive tackle is a big one. Running back could use more clarity. You could even argue the team could use help at corner. The front office might not be super aggressive in bringing in big names, but trading away some depth for the right upgrade could be the smarter move. If there's a way to flip a fringe player into a legitimate nose tackle, someone who can actually make a difference against the run, you've got to consider it. Some of the better options are already off the board. Guys like Harrison Phillips and Eric Nady were moved elsewhere. That stings. But if there's still a path to grab a dependable interior presence, Dallas has to look into it. Because if they go into the regular season with just Jason Tuioti and Perrion Winfrey holding down the nose, it's going to be rough. That's not the kind of interior you want against NFC contenders. So who could be trade bait? Well, Motzie Smith's name keeps coming up. He hasn't lived up to expectations, and while cutting him doesn't make sense financially, moving him in a trade might. He still has potential, and another team might see that and be willing to take a shot. If you can use him as a chip to bring in a more polished, more NFL-ready defensive tackle, that's a move you've got to at least explore. Let's stay on that trade thread, because it's not just about Motzie Smith. The Cowboys are sitting on a gold mine of offensive line depth, and they can't keep everyone. They just can't. Numbers don't allow it. You look at the roster and realize they've got at least 11 offensive linemen who could reasonably make an NFL roster, and that's after cutting Lyle Collins. Tyler Smith, Cooper Beebe, Tyler Booker, and Terrence Steele are locked in as your starters. Assuming Tyler Guyton is healthy, he's your left tackle. Nathan Thomas seems to be the top backup, and he might even have to start Week 1. But then behind them, you're talking about names like TJ Bass, Austin Richards, Brock Hoffman, Sadiq Charles, Hakeem Adeniji, Johnny Cornelius. That's a lot of bodies, way too many for a standard 53-man roster. 11 linemen is pushing it. 12 is absurd. So now the question becomes, who has value on the trade market? Because you're not going to get much for someone like Sadiq Charles, who's a journeyman with limited upside at this point. But a guy like TJ Bass? That's interesting. He's versatile, young, has upside, and flashed in the preseason. Teams always need that kind of guy. Or take Austin Richards. Yes, he played deep into the final preseason game, but he's a rookie, and rookies always generate interest, especially offensive linemen who've shown they can hold up, even in flashes. Someone out there is dealing with injuries or poor depth and would jump at the chance to add a capable body before week 1. Brock Hoffman is another one who might draw attention. Personally, I wouldn't trade him because he's your backup center and can swing to guard if needed, and that kind of versatility is gold. But that also means he might have enough value to fetch you a piece at a position of need, like defensive tackle. And let's be honest here, the Cowboys need help at defensive tackle. They're not built to win in the trenches defensively right now, and that's a problem. The edges are loaded. Micah Parsons is a generational player, and the linebacker room is young but intriguing. But if teams can run the ball right up the gut, then none of that matters. You'll be on your heels every Sunday. You can't go into the season thinking Jason Tuioti and Perry and Winfrey are your best options at nose tackle. That's not sustainable. It's not playoff football. You need someone who can plug gaps, eat blocks, and let your linebackers fly around. That's why the Motzie Smith situation stings. The Cowboys spent a first-round pick on him. First round. And right now, he's barely hanging on to a roster spot. The whispers about conditioning, about weight management, about effort, it all adds up. He didn't show much last year, and this preseason hasn't exactly been encouraging. If you can package him in a deal for a more consistent interior presence, you have to think long and hard about doing it, even if it means admitting the pick was a miss. You can't let pride get in the way of roster construction. It's not about being right. It's about getting better. And speaking of depth, let's not ignore the edge rushers. The Cowboys are stacked at defensive end. That's not even up for debate. But it's also an area where you might be able to deal from strength. Sam Williams is the name that jumps out here. Former second-round pick, freakish athlete, high ceiling. But for whatever reason, he didn't see the field much last year. Some of that was injuries, some of it was scheme, some of it was just a numbers game. And now you're in a situation where he's fighting for reps again. If you're not going to use him, and someone out there is willing to give up real value for him, especially a defensive tackle or a mid-round pick, then you have to entertain that. But before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on the Dallas Cowboys. Feel free to share your thoughts on the news in the comments as well. CeeDee Lamb, one of the brightest stars in the NFL, reportedly exploded with frustration this week, claiming he feels undervalued within the Dallas Cowboys organization. According to insiders, Lamb expressed his feelings candidly, stating, "They don't appreciate me here," during what sources describe as a private but tense meeting with team management. The comments have quickly sparked a firestorm of speculation among fans and analysts alike, raising questions about the future of the Cowboys' star wide receiver. The timing of Lamb's remarks is particularly noteworthy, as the team struggles to find consistency in its offensive strategy despite his standout performances on the field. Observers point out that Lamb has delivered exceptional statistics throughout the season, often carrying the team's passing game and making highlight reel plays that have kept the Cowboys competitive in key matchups. Rumors suggest that his dissatisfaction may stem not only from contractual disputes, but also from what he perceives as a lack of recognition for his contributions during critical moments, especially when compared to other high-profile teammates. The atmosphere around the Cowboys headquarters is reportedly charged, with whispers that locker room tensions may rise if Lamb's concerns are not addressed promptly and transparently by the coaching staff and front office. Sources close to the team indicate that the situation surrounding Lamb has created a subtle, yet growing unease among Cowboys personnel. While management has publicly expressed confidence in the cohesion and direction of the team, insiders hint that privately there is a genuine concern over how Lamb's remarks might influence the locker room dynamic. Teammates reportedly acknowledge his immense talent and agree that he has been instrumental in numerous victories. But the conversation around recognition, contracts, and playing time has intensified behind closed doors. The NFL community has been quick to dissect the statement, with analysts debating whether this is a temporary emotional reaction or a more profound indication of dissatisfaction that could impact the team's long-term strategy. Speculation now surrounds potential off-season moves, trade possibilities, or renegotiations that could satisfy Lamb while preserving team chemistry. Fans, meanwhile, have taken to social media, creating a mix of support for their favorite star and concern over the potential disruption to a team that has historically relied on stability and unity. As the rumors circulate, the question remains whether this outburst will serve as a catalyst for constructive dialogue or signal the beginning of a more complicated chapter in the relationship between one of the NFL's most electrifying receivers and his storied franchise. Analysts have pointed out that Lamb's comments could be indicative of a broader trend in professional sports, where elite athletes are increasingly vocal about their perceived value and the recognition they receive. The Cowboys, traditionally known for their disciplined management and structured hierarchy, might face challenges balancing the desire to retain a top talent with maintaining a harmonious team culture. Industry insiders speculate that Lamb's frustrations are not merely about money or statistics, but a deeper need for respect and acknowledgement from the organization that drafted him and has relied heavily on his explosive capabilities. Rumors suggest that during team meetings and practice sessions, Lamb has been noticeably intense, displaying a combination of drive and impatience that some interpret as leadership, while others worry about potential friction with coaching staff. The narrative gaining traction in sports media circles is that if the Cowboys fail to address these concerns satisfactorily, they risk not only losing a cornerstone player, but also creating an atmosphere where dissatisfaction spreads among other athletes seeking affirmation. The ongoing debate among commentators, former players, and fans has intensified speculation about the next steps for both Lamb and the franchise, with some suggesting that the offseason could be pivotal in determining whether this tension resolves amicably or escalates into a high-profile standoff. Meanwhile, social media platforms have exploded with fan theories, insider leaks, and speculative commentary regarding the internal dynamics of the Dallas Cowboys. Many believe that Lamb's public venting, whether intentional or not, is a strategic move to apply pressure on team executives for better contract terms or increased influence in team decisions. Others argue that it reflects genuine frustration and a sense of underappreciation that has been simmering for months, possibly years, as Lamb consistently delivers remarkable performances without receiving commensurate acknowledgement. Sports commentators have dissected every element of the statement, from tone and timing to context within recent games, creating a wave of narrative that fuels the rumor mill. Analysts have also revisited Lamb's career trajectory, noting how his rapid ascent to stardom may have heightened expectations for recognition, while juxtaposing this with the Cowboys' approach to team cohesion and hierarchy. As speculation mounts, insiders continue to hint at behind-the-scenes negotiations, subtle interventions by veteran teammates, and potential discussions with coaches that could either ease tensions or inadvertently exacerbate them. The uncertainty surrounding the situation has prompted a broader conversation about athlete empowerment, management accountability, and the delicate balance between individual stardom and team priorities in one of the NFL's most scrutinized organizations. Amid this whirlwind of rumors and speculation, the broader impact on the Cowboys' performance cannot be ignored. Sources suggest that while the team maintains a professional front publicly, the locker room has been abuzz with conversations about loyalty, recognition, and the value of each player's contributions. Lamb's outburst has catalyzed renewed discussion among team strategists about player motivation, retention, and the alignment between talent and acknowledgement. Observers point out that the Cowboys' upcoming games could serve as a litmus test, revealing whether the team can channel this tension into heightened performance or whether the undercurrent of dissatisfaction will manifest on the field. Some suggest that Lamb's frustrations might inspire him to elevate his game further, driven by the desire to prove critics wrong, while others caution that unresolved feelings could create miscommunication, missed opportunities, or strained collaboration with key teammates. Rumors about possible off-season trade talks, contract renegotiations, and even coaching adjustments continue to circulate, feeding a narrative that the next months may redefine not only Lamb's future, but also the strategic direction of the Cowboys organization. In this tense atmosphere, Fans, pundits, and insiders alike are left watching closely, awaiting the next chapter in what has quickly become one of the NFL's most compelling and buzzworthy storylines. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the Dallas Cowboys, please subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. We always look forward to your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.